This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, from Philadelphia to Erie and from Pittsburgh to Scranton, it's Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewalt, Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and I'm joined as usual by my co-host, Maura Donnelly. Hi, Maura.
Hello, Charlie. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, too. And at this time of year, schools are winding down.
Yes, they are.
And we're going to have a chance to reflect on the educational year that just passed and what we've done right, what we're doing wrong, what we can improve on. And certainly one of the best authorities for us to reflect on higher education is our guest today.
Yes.
We're lucky enough to have with us Kara Laskowski. Kara is the Vice President of ABSCUF, and this is your first time on the show, Kara.
It is. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome.
Welcome so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Since it is the first time that you've been on the show, as the Vice President of ABSCUF, you're also a professor. We want to ask you, and for our viewers, what do you teach, and at what university? I was at Millersville until I retired. Where are you?
I'm at Shippensburg University, where I am a professor of communication studies. So I teach things like public speaking, conflict resolution, research methods. Of course, the students love that. Right. Small group communication and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds great. Do you have a favorite aspect of your job?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The students are the best.
Aw,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yes. Yeah.
So what kind of work are you doing at ABSCUF right now?
Well, I am currently the Vice President of ABSCUF at the state level. So about a quarter of my work time is dedicated to that role, in which I work with our chapter presidents and our members across the state system to make sure that issues important to the organization and our membership are attended to. I also work with our phenomenal staff members. That's a really great aspect of the position, to be able to work with the employees of ABSCUF. And I am in a position where I am also, through various committee assignments and other work, in direct contact with the administration of the state system. So it's a pretty multifaceted role.
And just a quarter of your time.
Just a
sounds like
quarter.
it should be more than that.
Why, full disclosure for our viewers, I had done a little bit of volunteer work with ABSCUF while I was teaching, and I was fortunate enough to work with you on a few things. And I can tell our viewers that this lady is heavily involved. She gives thousands of hours of volunteer time.
I knew it.
To try to improve education and to make our future, our children's future better. And you're to be congratulated for. People don't know the years and years and years of work that you've put into our state system, Kara. And someone should point it out.
Oh, thank you, Charlie. And we miss you in that venue in our public relations work for ABSCUF. But
Thank you.
yeah.
So, and as if you didn't have enough work to do, you've been recently appointed to the new State Board of Higher Education that Governor Shapiro started.
Yes.
So can you start by telling us what that is? I'm not sure our viewers have heard about it because
Sure.
it is really new. And what role you'll be playing and what has the commission done so far?
Sure. So the State Board of Higher Education was an agreement for a body that was reached between the legislature and the Shapiro administration. And really the goal is to try to better coordinate and support the pretty disjointed landscape of higher education in the Commonwealth. So it is not just for the state system, the state-owned universities, but we also are attempting to engage in coordination, direction, and support for state-related institutions, private institutions, and community colleges, but it also encompasses post-secondary education in technical and vocational institutions. So So it's not just your traditional four-year degrees. It's the whole range of things that an individual might pursue after high school.
What's the main objective of this new commission?
Well,
Just to bring everybody together, or
I think that
does it have a mission?
the mission is really to provide direction, coordination, and support. So bringing people together, I think, is a nice way to sum that up. We are oftentimes so busy working in our own areas that we don't necessarily have that opportunity to figure out how do we coordinate and make better use of resources on one end, but also then how are we ensuring that all of the opportunities that students deserve are being offered in a way that's kind of seamless.
Is it interesting to hear from the other elements of higher education that you don't hear from every day or are familiar with while you're meeting?
Absolutely, yeah. It's the kind of challenges that we face. There are some that are very similar, but then some that are really distinct depending upon the different sectors. Yeah.
Well, Kara, the new State Board of Higher Education has had a series of hearings. How have these hearings progressed so far?
So we have had, I serve on a subcommittee for the strategic vision of the State Board, and as part of that effort, we have had regional hearings. There are other committees that are ongoing and having different hearings. The ones that we have held across the state have been exceptionally well attended. I think the executive director and the staff of the State Board have done a phenomenal job of putting together the outreach to communities to get various stakeholders and representatives in attendance at those meetings. So we've been hearing from business leaders, from community members, from students and alumni of various institutions, from local politicians, and just residents across the state about what they perceive as the vital issues for higher education.
And will there be a report issued, or what's the outcome of these hearings going to be?
Yeah, we are coming up on that, and so there will be a full report from that committee that will be coming out regarding what
they think the strategic vision ought to be?
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
That's going to be interesting to see how that works out.
Yes.
Yeah. Very, very good.
Well, for years on this program, Kara, we've talked about Pennsylvania Promise. And there are many people who may not have heard of the Pennsylvania Promise Plan yet. So I would like to ask you if you could please repeat, what is it? Why is it needed in Pennsylvania? And why is it important for our future?
Sure. So Pennsylvania Promise is a proposed program that would ensure affordable college access for Pennsylvania residents. And as with many other states, the effort is to provide financial support for college. This is something that really got off the ground with the Keystone Research Center and the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center. Their report on the Pennsylvania Promise in early 2018. There have been various efforts throughout the years and across different administrations. So for instance, Governor Wolf had the Nellie Bly scholarship proposal. This particular iteration repeats the main goal, which is to provide that affordable access to post-secondary education in Pennsylvania. We know that state support for public education has been cut year after year for a long period of time, and so we see students really struggling to be able to afford that greater portion of the tab and having higher debt when they exit college or university. And so this effort would really help to correct that prior history. Again, other states have similar programs where either community colleges or the four-year state-owned institutions or some combination thereof are covered by state dollars for students. There's oftentimes an income, a family income limit that helps to set whether full tuition or partial tuition is covered for students. And certainly here in Pennsylvania, we would be looking at tuition for the state-owned and state-related institutions as well, as a community college in the state.
So you mentioned that this was a proposal, and I know that's been around for a while, and certain governors have adopted portions of it.
Right.
Anything from this administration on adopting, accepting, promoting it yet?
Well, we know that it's in memo form in the legislature, so we're waiting to see where it goes right
Oh,
now.
well, that's good news.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Just memos.
great
but,
update.
you
That's
know,
okay. That's all right.
There was a
That is better than nothing.
press conference about a month ago, so yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Why, Kara, ABSCF serves as the faculty union for the state system schools, and for the coaches. But what else does ABSCF do, for example, for students?
Well, one of our slogans as a union is that our working conditions are our students' learning conditions. And so, it's really phenomenal to be an ABSCF member and to be able to use our contract to argue for things like what I would call appropriate class sizes. There are class sizes that can be big, but and we don't necessarily always need to have super small classes, as you know from being a professor. It's all about finding that right size. And when you do, you can have those interactions and those experiences in the classroom. And so our contract gives us some curricular control, some ability to make those arguments. And that means that when our students come into a classroom, they're getting the same experience that they would at a much more expensive institution. And so we're able to provide that quality of education. We also ensure that our classes are taught by professors, people who are experts in their field, permanent faculty members who are going to be there year after year. So when they come back and they had you as a first-year student and now they need a letter of recommendation, you're still there. And that's a real benefit for our students.
No, go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say it's hard for us to have a guest on this time of year without asking about the impact of the budget on what you're seeing, any prognostications, any general statements about the budget and higher education.
Well, we were really pleased, certainly with the governor's proposal, the increase for PASHE, and the bipartisan support that we've seen over the past couple of years for public higher education. And it makes such a difference. I have seen, I've been at Shippensburg since 2003, and in those 22 years, I have seen just the effects of budget cuts and underfunding on our students. My students are working overnight. We're in Shippensburg, we're in that 81 corridor with all the warehouses, and they come to class and they're falling asleep, and they tell me it's not because I'm boring. I hope that's true. But it's because they can make an extra couple bucks if they take the overnight shift at one of the warehouses in the area. And it's heartbreaking. It also has ramifications for our communities because our students are then not as available to do the kind of volunteering and community service and service learning related projects in the community that we used to do. So investing in higher education, it's truly an investment. And I think, that's the point that I would underscore about the budget.
Okay. Well, Kara, we want to thank you very much for being with us today, and we look forward very much to you coming back and keeping us apprised of what's going on in higher education in Pennsylvania.
Thank you so much.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay, we'll be back with another episode, with another segment right after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, the largest, most influential municipal association in the Commonwealth. Since 1921, PSATS has been preserving and strengthening township government and securing greater visibility and involvement for townships in the state and federal political arenas. Covering 95% of Pennsylvania's land mass, townships represent 5.5 million residents, more than any other type of political subdivision in Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Visit pahighwayinfo.org.
Hi, welcome back to Behind the Headlines. On this segment, Mara and I are joined by our resident expert on all things road transportation, and that is Bob Latham, who is the Executive Vice President of the Associated Pennsylvania Constructors. Welcome back, Bob.
Thanks. Good to be with you both.
Nice to
Oh,
see
well,
you.
this is the season, and everyone is hitting the roads for summer vacation, and we're talking about the condition of the roads more than ever. And you are the person I know of to talk about this subject. And I don't know, Mara, would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's nobody else in Pennsylvania who can talk about this like we can. It's absolutely the case.
Well, we got a lot going on
Yeah.
in transportation and highways, so let's get into it.
It's also budget season, so
Exactly.
we've got a lot to cover today.
I'll let you start out.
Well, so let's set the stage. Tell us a little bit about why transportation funding is always such a big issue.
Well, we have more roads and bridges in Pennsylvania than any other state in the country. So it's always going to be an issue for us. Our geography also sets the stage for that. We have a lot of lakes, rivers, mountains, and we have this freeze-thaw cycle, unlike many of our northern states or our southern states. So that makes it very difficult on concrete, steel, et cetera. So the roads have about a 20-year lifespan. Bridges have about a 50-year lifespan. We built the interstates system across the country in the late 1950s and 1960s, so you can understand how old the interstate system is. We have 2,000 miles of interstate highway in Pennsylvania that's very expensive to maintain. The issue today really revolves around our rural roads and bridges that I want to talk about when we get into it.
Well, so one of the sort of geography / Mother Nature issues has got to be rain. The rain we've had, the wettest May on record. Roads are washing out, bridges are having issues. That's not good.
Fortunately, I'm only aware of a couple of PennDOT bridges that have been washed out in Somerset County, but you're right. Now that sets up a whole new situation where you got to repurpose money that was maybe programmed for some other project to go in and rebuild these emergency situations right away. But we've been blessed with federal funding, so we have a lot of major work going on in the Harrisburg area, for example. Next year we're going to start work on rebuilding the I-83 bridge over the Susquehanna River. But that's a huge project.
Yeah.
We have huge projects in I-95 in Philadelphia, along I-80 up in the northern region, and also out in Pittsburgh, a number of bridges and some major projects out there. So what that's doing is we have to use our state funds in order to match federal funds, which leaves sort of a hole, I guess, if you will, in that budget for those more rural roads and bridges that many citizens rely on. That's sort of that last mile for people out.
But the federal funds don't cover those that you're talking about. So that's part of the issue.
That is exactly part of the issue. Those local more rural roads, and not only just rural, but what they call roads that are not on the national highway system, and it doesn't necessarily have to be out in the country somewhere. But those projects have to use state funding, so we're light on that.
Well, isn't it true? You mentioned you mentioned the phrase "next year." Next year is the celebration of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Is Philadelphia ready for it, Bob?
Well, that's correct, and it also expands the conversation beyond roads to public transit, because with the World Cup, with the 250th, with the All-Star Game, and on the outskirts of Philadelphia, one of the major PGA golf tournaments at Aronimink, there'll be a high demand for buses, trains, etc., and the transit systems in the Commonwealth now are hurting as far as their budgets are concerned. So we have more of a multimodal issue. We have the rural roads that need to be addressed, and then we have the urban public transit, and of course, streets and roads and bridges that the buses go over. They don't levitate on air. They have to drive on roads.
Do we
as
have
well.
enough time to be ready?
Well, we have time. I mean,
We need the funding.
the transit situation is more operating expenses and money to operate the existing system. So it's not like they have to build stuff for them, and it's not like we have particular roads that are closed in Center City. So the Philadelphia celebration issue is, can the legislature come up with the requisite money that they're seeking in order to have their operating budgets fulfilled? On the other side of the state, or the not-so-urban areas, you see legislators there that are saying, well, what about my constituents? We don't have roads and we don't have buses and trains in Blair County. We don't have them in Clearfield County, but we do have roads and we do have bridges that are weight posted, which is a problem for farmers and small manufacturers and other businesses that rely on roads to get their products to the market and rely on getting their people to work as well. So it's a double-edged sword. You've got highways and local roads and bridges in the rural districts, and then of course you have the transit situation in the urban area. And it's not just Philadelphia. Pittsburgh, of course, is going to have the NFL draft in 2026, I believe. So they've got their own situation out there as well. And all this is swirling around the context of the overall state general fund budget and how we can work in and around that.
Well, we've had you on enough, and we've known you long enough to know that you have a solution.
Well, we have a short-term solution, unfortunately. The long-term solution is really, how do we replace or how do we augment the gas tax, which is our primary source of funding for road and bridge maintenance and construction in Pennsylvania and throughout the country. But even if electric vehicles don't take off the way they might have we are seeing fuel efficiency, and we are seeing a loss of buying power from the gas tax itself. And in Pennsylvania, we have the second highest in the country. So it's difficult with all those areas that border Ohio, West Virginia, Maryland, New York, et cetera, New Jersey. Those states rely on other sources of funds, but people just see what they pay at the pump. So in the long term, we're going to have to replace that in some fashion. We don't have that solution now, but what we do have is a short-term solution to get at what we just talked about, Mauro, and that is we can do some short-term bond financing that will boost our ability to invest or to work on rural roads and bridges that are ineligible for the federal funds that we just talked about.
Where does this stand? Does this need legislative action? Is this just something?
Well, it's part of the budget.
It is in the budget.
As we talk here today, we're in June. By the Constitution, they're supposed to be done by June 30th, but nobody let a little thing like the Constitution get in the way of stringing things out. So hopefully by right after the 4th of July, we'll have a state budget, and this has to, again, they have to figure out how are we going to fund transit operating, and how are we going to then cobble that together with an infrastructure or road and bridge program, sort of what we talked about. We can use some of that state police money, but again, that's a budget issue. We can provide better funding for public transit, but that's a budget issue. And then you have all this other stuff swirling around, particularly what is the federal government going to do? What is going to happen with the tax bill at the national level? If they cut Medicaid and force that back to the states, that's right back on our general fund, and that's causing some pressure and some angst among our leaders, and rightfully so. They're trying to keep their fiscal house in order and trying to balance all these needs at the same time.
Well, Bob, one of the things that's going on, unbeknownst to most Pennsylvania residents, is that the transportation funding can be spotty at times. It's not consistent all the time. So therefore, a lot of employees and workers for a lot of the large construction firms have had to go to other states for a short period of time to find employment.
That's a great-
And we need to get them back if we're going to do all this work, don't we?
That's a great point. One
How
of
do
the
we do
things,
it?
one of the things that our industry has said for years is we don't need a rocket ship, in terms of the boost in funding. That's probably not even particularly responsible. But we need to have a program that goes like this and not like this, because when we have the fall offs and the dips, that's when we lose employees that never come back. So and if we want to attract young people out of we have world-class engineering schools here in the Commonwealth, but we graduate them and they go elsewhere if we don't have a job market for them to be in. So this type of a program that we're talking about here today, the short-term bonding program, will keep that capital
Consistency,
program at
yeah.
that level amount until
Yeah.
we can, look even further out into the long-term future of funding for transportation. I think, as long as we have cars and buses and trucks, we're going to need roads.
And your members would be really happy with that sort of predictability
Yes,
in
absolutely.
funding for the projects.
That's
yeah.
correct. Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about in terms of employment. But then, of course, there's a safety aspect of that of this as well. Because if you have rural roads that are in bad shape, it's a safety hazard. You have a lot of school buses that ride over those roads in major school districts. You want to make sure that those roads are in good condition, bridges are in good condition. So again, commercial vehicles, buses that we talked about there have safe roads to travel on. So safety, economy, quality of life is very important for us to continue to invest in infrastructure.
With something else that's also required, Bob, for our transportation plans and programs to go forward is that we rely on matching federal grants. And how is state funding lining up in the current budget to meet those obligations? Are we going to have matching funds?
Let me go back. Pennsylvania always is at the forefront of making sure that we capture every federal dollar that's available to us.
That's a good thing.
I've been around for a number of years. I've never seen us lose a federal dollar. In fact, sometimes if other states can't get that together, it throws money back into a pool. PennDOT, and again, it's this administration after administration, Republican, Democrat. The people at PennDOT are very efficient in making sure they're ready to capture any federal dollar that's available to us coming here. In fact, have to credit the Shapiro administration and all the work that they did, and the Wolf administration before them, all the work that they did to capture this grant for this bridge over the Susquehanna River.
Well, okay, as you mom and dads get ready to hit the road with your kids in the station wagon for your summer vacations, you've got the forecast here from the roads from Bob, and he'll be back in the not too distant future to follow this up and see how we're doing transportation wise in Pennsylvania. We'll be with you again next time. We'll see you then.